Here I have on the table two of my favorite Sheffield multi-tools. Now, before we go too much further, that doesn't mean these are great multi-tools, but it does mean that I think they are worth collecting for the history they represent. Now, first of all, probably the better tool is the Sheffield Crocodile. And why this is worth getting is because it's a copy of the Kershaw A100, and the Kershaw A100 is becoming more and more expensive to some extent because it is a more rare tool. And the Crocodile, sometimes you can get a little bit cheaper, and it has a unique tool set. It is a vice grip style multi-tool, and you have that apparatus on this side. Then on the other side, you have this, which actually locks the handles. You have the Phillips screwdriver, you have the can opener, you have the file, and this has a screwdriver on the end. You have this combo blade, and then you have this very, very sketchy looking tool that is a bottle opener slash screwdriver, and probably will break the first time you use it. But that is the tool set of the Sheffield Crocodile, and the handles fold up just like so. So it's a pretty neat tool, and with the Kershaw A100 becoming so expensive and so pricey, this is a neat reminder of that period in history when the Leatherman Crunch had some serious competition with the Kershaw 100, not so much with this. All right, now the second tool is the Gerber 12020. I think that's the model, or the 19-in-1. And neither of these you can buy new. Sometimes, rarely, you can find them on eBay. So these are becoming, even these copies are becoming very scarce and hard to find. So I recently saw this and I picked up this because it is a slip joint multi-tool, and that is something you do not see very often in the market. There are hundreds of hammer multi-tools and all kinds of others, but for some reason slip joint multi-tools are not very popular and they're not made very much. So with the Dual Force coming out, I really like the Dual Force. I liked to pick up a couple different multi-tools to perhaps compare against in the future. So the slip joint plier portion of this multi-tool seems fine, seems to work okay. But if you do look here, it does seem like this is a bit narrow, perhaps, the metal. But when we get to the handles, there's a problem because this line, they have to be machined right where that line is. And if for some reason they get damaged or they're not machined correctly, they do not lock on this bar. So there are several tools here, like for instance this file, which will not lock because I think it's too long. So let's go ahead and go through the tool set. Just be aware that if you get this, especially on the used market, unless you could find one new in the package, that it may have some issues. So this is the serrated knife, you have the micro screwdriver, you have the Phillips screwdriver, you have a thicker or a wider and a thinner flat screwdriver, and then you do have this file. Now, if these tools are not too worn and they've been machined right, then they do lock. Now, this one skips on the lock. Let's try this other one. Let's close all the implements. Now, this one actually does hold in place. So let's go ahead and the file, and there we go, then it unlocks. So it's supposed to lock, but not all the implements do. Now on the other side, we have a saw, and then we have a second knife blade, or perhaps something that could be used more like an awl, but you also have a chisel. Now, this is one of the reasons why I love collecting these older tools, is because when we see, for instance, the new Gerber Dual Force that came out last year, I believe, or recently, and it has this chisel on the file, well, that seems really neat. But here is this tool years ago with the chisel, and of course SOG had a chisel on some of their older multi-tools as well, but it's unique to see some of these tools that have been made years ago and still have some unique tool sets. So then there is the It looks like a wire stripper notch at the bottom, almost like Leatherman or Victorinox. Maybe it's a wire bender notch, bottle cap lifter, and then I think this is a sort of version of an awl. It's not sharp at the end, but it is thin, so perhaps it is used sort of like an awl. And then you do have the can opener here as well, and then the knife, the regular knife. So again, as you have seen, this is not a perfect tool by any means, but I only recommend these as collector's items. So if you have a collector or a collection rather, I think these are unique pieces of history that show how the multi-tool market has evolved over the years, and this is unique. Now, the Schrade multi-tool company, years ago before they were all made in China, they actually had a slip joint version very similar to this, and the handles were turned like this, but on the slip joint version you can tell it's a slip joint because it has a bit driver in the handle instead of all these tools. And that is a very unique tool to find. It is very expensive, so I have not picked one of those up yet, but I think Sheffield probably copied a fair amount from the Schrade tool set as well. Perhaps they switched the handle and just made it like a normal handle. So this is, again, the Schrade Crocodile on this side. This is the Schrade, I believe it's labeled as a 19-in-1. These are very hard to find. If you can find these at a good price and you want to add them to your collection, I think it's worth it. But for an everyday user, there are a lot better options out there. All right, I will see you in the next video.